What's going on, boxing fans? Julian Williams here at the distance. Fantasy matchup. This one is James Toney versus Gerald Mcclellan. Both of them former middleweight champions. Both of them held the middleweight championship in the 90s. Actually, both are former middleweight and super middleweight champions. And anyway, I just got a text, but anyway, James Toney won the championship, defeated Michael second to none. I believe that McClellan defeated John Mugabe. It was either John Mugabe or Julian Jackson, one of these fighters. I think it was Mugabe when he won the WBO. I think it was the WBO middleweight championship. I'm not too sure, but anyway, on to the matchup. James Toney, we all know at 160 is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. At the time. I believe he was like number one ranked pound for pound when he was the middleweight champion. When he fought as a middleweight champion, he fought more often, he fought frequently, and and with that style, he had that shoulder roll, counter punching style, and we saw in the Nunn fight that he was a force to be reckoned with, and later on in his career. But the question with James Toney is, if he could have stayed disciplined, how well could he have been? I think that James Toney could have been much better if he could have stayed disciplined, if he could have. And I do believe that at 160, I think probably at that time, the only fighter that would give him problems would more than likely be Roy Jones. And I think that Roy Jones would have beaten him at 160 as well as he did at 168. And he did vacate the championship in '93. But James Toney had a very good counter punching style. We saw that he was a very tough fighter. We saw it against Tim Little when he got the cut over his eye and he came back and knocked him out. So overall, James Toney, brilliant counter punching style, defensive as well. Gerald Mcclellan, more of an offensive style. He came forward. He came forward, did a good job with the 1-2, and also threw very good hooks. I liked how he threw his double left hook when he found an opening. When he found that opening for the double left hook, and he would use that straight right and straight left to drive the opponent back and land his shots. So Gerald Mcclellan overall was a really good fighter, but there were I believe there was some flaws within Gerald Mcclellan that were not exposed, and I think that James Toney is the type of fighter that exposes flaws. So anyway, on to this matchup. As I mentioned, James Toney, counter punching specialist, defensive specialist, against Gerald Mcclellan. Gerald Mcclellan, as I mentioned, throws very good straight left, and follows up with a good straight right hand. Left jab, follows up with the straight right, and he always comes forward. And with Gerald Mcclellan, he did like his fighters on the ropes. So when he got his fighters on the ropes, that's when he would unleash and start landing, all kinds of hooks. But see, when he got you on the ropes, that's when the hooks would widen up. The hooks would become wide. And also, after he threw, there was no head movement. James Toney's the type of fighter that can exploit that. And I think when he throws his left hook, which is what he would lead in with when the fighter was on the ropes, James Toney could more than likely get that counter overhand right in, which to me was more than likely one of his specialty punches, was the counter overhand right. And I do believe that Gerald Mcclellan is going to miss quite a bit, but at the same time he's going to miss, but he's going to get some in. And James Toney, that I think is going to be rolling a lot of shots, and he's going to be rolling a lot of shots, but at the same time, other than rolling and slipping under a lot of shots, he's going to be coming back up top and countering with the right hand, countering with the left, countering maybe with a right uppercut, and coming forward. And I think he's going to start coming forward towards maybe the mid to later rounds. But I think that, and also, as I mentioned, it stands out. Gerald Mcclellan, no head movement really. He'd lunge into some shots, and I think James Toney could catch him with counter shots when he lunges in. I think James Toney could time him coming in. So I do think that, sometimes with fighters, and Gerald McClellan was associated with the Kronk Gym, Manuel Stewart, um, and also James Toney is from the Midwest as well. He's from the Midwest, and really it's not the same style, because Gerald McClellan was a monstrous puncher. He knew how to punch, but at the same time, I always wondered if how would he do in an actual boxing match. In a match when he would jab, find his shots, and other than jabbing and find his shots, how would he do? And I guess we did see it in the Ben fight. How would he do if he was in trouble? And this is not before the medical problems, but how would he do against a fighter that has his number? And Nigel Benn, we remember the Nigel Benn fight. He came in and he mauled Nigel Benn in the first round. Nigel Benn started to come back. But what about a fight, when he kind of has it in his hands a little bit, but the other fighter may creep up and get the fight? And I think that James Toney will win this fight. I think James Toney would knock him out in the 12th round. And even though Gerald McClellan was a tough fighter, I just think that James Toney throws a lot of overhand rights, counter overhand rights, and just all kinds of counter shots, and kind of exploit Gerald McClellan for not moving that head. So because as I mentioned, if you look at Gerald McClellan videos, if you see his matchups, he throws his shots. This is what he does. He stands there, he throws his shots, and even if he misses, there's no head movement. But sometimes his offense was his defense as well, because he kept throwing and he continued to throw. But I think James Toney has a type of style that will make him a little more well aware of what to throw, a little more well aware of how to approach the fight. And I think it can confuse him a little bit. And I think that shoulder rolling style, he's, as I mentioned, he's going to get some shots in, but he's going to get countered with a lot of shots. So anyway, I'm going to go with James Toney by knockout late. So anyway, that was the distance. Thanks for watching. Peace.